So today I'm going to be interviewing Sandra Hsu. She's a Los Angeles-based artist who specializes in watercolors, mainly portraits and abstract art. She started her career as a fashion designer, but she had to stop in 1994 when her dad got sick. But now she's back to doing creative work and has over 13,000 Instagram followers. She mostly posts about her art. And most recently, she's been using her craft and her platform to speak out against anti Asian hate crimes. Also, full disclosure, she's me mama. So, mama, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Noah.
Yeah. Um, I have some questions written down here, and they're kind of just the baseline. We might go a little bit off script, but I guess I could just get started.
Okay.
Um, you sent me a video recently, and uh, folks in my advisory may know this already. But you said that you'd be rooting for America in the Olympics. And so, what I'd like to know is, when did you first start to consider yourself American, and what was that like?
Um, yeah, I think I never really considered myself an American until much later because as I said actually in the same video that you saw, I spent a lot of my time outside. Most of my time outside school was doing Chinese cultural things with the family. So I always thought of myself as a Chinese living in America until pretty much I would say I went to college and separated myself more from my family. And
Mhm.
most of my friends were or white, and you know, I wasn't doing any of those cultural things as much anymore. And that's when I met your father as well. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I don't think I considered myself American until then. And it still was a very gradual process.
Yeah. That's really interesting to me because I know that, at least when I think back to my time in college, it was kind of it was the first time that I really spent in not only a different community but also so far from my family where I grew up.
Yeah.
Um, that's really interesting. Do you feel that it? Because I remember when I went to college, I actually felt like I became a little like almost more in touch with my Chinese identity.
Hmm.
Um, it seems like for you, it was like you became maybe more in touch with the American side of your identity.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, I think when you were at home with our family, we definitely had much fewer Chinese cultural traditions and did fewer things than I did when I was younger. So your life at home before you went to college was very American. I would say more American than Chinese. And then I think you became a little more interested maybe in the Chinese side of your culture once you left. I'm not sure what
Yeah,
prompted that, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. All
Because
right.
we do have, one fully white person in our family. And your
Yeah,
brother is definitely, I would say, you know, a blend of both as well. So it's our family is definitely much more blended than Chinese.
yeah. Well, we are also in America, so that is
Yeah.
kind of that does tend to happen. Um, and another thing from that video that was kind of striking to me was, we often think of racial profiling as happening to um, black and brown people, and it's true that Asian Americans don't often get racially profiled for crimes, but it is very common for us to be profiled as foreigners. There's the stereotypical interaction of, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Santa Monica. No, where are you really from, right?
Right. Yeah.
um, and I remember in that video you talked about a trip to Canada that ended in a bit of an awkward situation.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could recount that story just for our listeners and talk a little bit about how it affected you.
Okay. So this was a long time ago. I was in college in upstate New York, and at the time, the border between U.S. and Canada was very open, and so you could easily cross back and forth, especially in a car driving back and forth. You didn't have to have a passport to cross the border. Um, and so one weekend, your dad, who was my boyfriend at the time, and two of our friends, um, we decided to, well, actually, the two uh, men decided they would ask the two of us, the two girls, to go across the border as on a picnic, but it was a surprise to go across the border.
Hmm.
We thought we were going on a picnic, and then at the last minute they said, "Hey, surprise! We're going across the border to the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, and it's going to be really fun." Um,
Yeah.
and so Niagara Falls is really funny. It's a honeymoon destination actually, and so we were we thought they thought it would be fun to get a hotel room with a heart-shaped bed. That was like the whole idea of fun. But anyway, uh,
That sounds uncomfortable, actually, but it sounds like it's cool to do for like one night
yeah, it's like
type
a
of
college
thing.
idea that seems fun, right? But
Yeah.
unfortunately, every room was booked when we got there, and so we had to
Hmm.
drive back without finding a place to stay late that night. It was like around 11 p.m., maybe even later. And
Ooh.
so it was dark. It was at the checkpoint. There's a even though you don't have to have like your passport, there's still a checkpoint. And at the checkpoint, we're all in the car, and the checkpoint officer asks me for proof of citizenship. And
Hmm.
it first of all, we didn't need our passports. Second of all, we didn't need to have our passports to cross the border. So a lot of people didn't bring them. Even the boys who knew we were going across the border didn't bring them. Second of all, um, he only asked me. Um,
Right.
the other three
Not the
people,
three white people.
yeah, the other three people were white, and I said I don't have it. It was a surprise, and he said, "Well, you're not going to be able to go back because I don't know that you're a U.S. citizen." And I said, "But here's my California driver's license, and here's my Cornell ID, and I'm a student there, and you know that's where I go to school, and that's where I came from." And he said, "But that doesn't prove to me that you're a citizen. You either need to have your naturalization papers or your passport." And I didn't. I mean, they were all back home in California. They weren't even at Cornell. I left them at home with my
Hmm.
parents. And he said, "Well, your friends can go get whatever they need to come back, and basically, you know, you can wait here until they help you with your
Like
papers."
they can go get your papers or something.
Yeah, and I said, "But they don't have their papers." And he said, "I don't care. It's just, you know, I'm not going to let you back." And it was apparent that it was definitely the way I looked, because of the fact that I have Asian ethnicity, and I have different ethnicity than the others, even though I was American.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we sat there for 45 minutes, and my friends, my girlfriend, who has gone on to become an attorney, was just irate and just yelling at him, and he just refused to let us pass. I think it made the situation probably escalate a little, but meanwhile the line of cars behind us was growing and growing, the lights, and people were honking, and
Hmm.
it got to the point where he finally relented and said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, you know what? You're lucky. I'm just going to let you go." But it was terrible. It was a terrible, and at the
Jeez.
time, I didn't even realize that it was a racist incident until after we got past it. Because at the time, I was just worried about getting back to school, not
Yeah.
getting stuck at the border. But afterwards, when I thought about it and how he treated me that way because I was Asian, it was just it it was all,
Hmm.
it made me, I was shaking, I was crying. And, your father still remembers the incident very clearly. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's interesting what you said about how you didn't realize that it was really a racist incident until later.
Hmm.
Yeah, a lot of the things that I know happened to me, um, you don't think about it at the time. Sometimes it even honestly doesn't affect you. Like I remember, um, there was the there were these kids on the Franklin playground who would like come up to me and chant like, me Chinese, me play joke, me go pee pee in your Coke,
Oh,
stuff like that.
yes.
And um,
That's
yeah, that old classic, right?
oh gosh. I remember
Yeah,
when you were little and going to Franklin, and yeah, I remember
yeah,
that incident. Oh,
yeah. And and then just recently I was watching this live streamer who was he's um he's ethnically Turkish, and also a Muslim, and he was saying, "Wait, so you're saying that not everybody gets like swabbed for bomb residue every time they go through the TSA? Like you just don't realize at the time that that's what's happening."
yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah,
that's really that's really interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, but you've been kind of talking about this anti-Asian racism a lot more lately. I know you've kind of been using your online platform to speak out about it, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what's it like to go from being a private individual to um, an online creator and, dare I say, activist a little bit.
It's kind of crazy.
Like, do you feel a sort of responsibility to your audience?
Yeah, I have to say the last week, so I launched a new Instagram account about a week and a half ago, um, 2 days before the Atlanta shootings, where 6 Asian women were killed. And
Hmm.
so, we had launched this account to raise awareness, and it's called Share Your Asian Story. And we wanted to, and I had gotten the others together to do this project. I mean, it wasn't just me. You know, the other people that are involved in the project really um, had a lot to do with it as well. But we wanted to create this hashtag Share Your Asian Story as a platform for people to talk about the little, the story that I just shared with you is just one. And
Hmm.
having talk to them, the other three who are Asians, we all realize that yes, we've all experienced that, and we wanted to create a platform for people to speak out about it, and also a platform for people uh, to share about our cultures, about the Asian cultures, because the more you know about a culture, the less you're likely to be racist. The more you learn about a different culture and what's behind that stereotype, the less likely you can be racist against someone. So that was the goal. But 2 days after we created the account, the shootings happened, and so the stories just started pouring in. Um,
Yeah.
the artwork, we started it as an art account, basically, or an art hashtag, because all most of us are in the fashion illustration community. But when the shootings happened, we felt like we needed to say something to make a statement, because we had just started this account. And so we went on Instagram Live, the four of us, and talked about how we felt about it and how racism had affected us. And um, people just started sharing photographs of themselves, as kids, people, and talking about their experiences on the playground, or their experiences as parents raising kids of color, and
Hmm.
talking about Asian women shared about being fetishized, um, right? uh,
Yeah.
so many stories came pouring in, and I've just been, you know, because I feel an obligation to, as soon as these stories come in, I feel an obligation to the people who are sharing them to put it out there, because that's what I'm there for. That's why I created it. And so it's been a lot of, not only, time wise, but it's also difficult to get a
Is
break
that
from
emotional
it.
labor?
Yeah, yeah, it's I'm sympathizing and I'm absorbing all of this as well, so it's hard to get away from it. As a private person, I can probably turn it off and go do something else, but because
Mm.
there's so much going on, that's been
Yeah.
tiring. I would say it's been emotionally very difficult, but rewarding as well, So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do to take a break?
You know me, I do my dancing.
That's true. Yes, you are quite the dancer. Um,
Oh, but I have to tell you actually a really cool story about this Share Your Asian Story initiative. So 2 days, 3 days after we started the account, um, because of the fashion community, someone from the fashion community it's a little bit more international, right? So someone from the fashion community shared it, and someone in France saw our account and contacted me on Instagram and said, it's a woman, a Cambodian French artist. And she said, I'm a musician and I created the song um, Blasting Asian Stereotypes back in December. And here it is. Feel free to use it however you wish.
ooh.
And it's kind of like a hip hop rap, French, English, and Chinese rap song, and she sent it to me, and I was just blown away. It's really cool. And then my dance friends, one of my Asian dance friends said, I want to make a video against Asian hate. And so she said, I want us to dance, and I'm going to collect photographs and signs of support from my friends, and we're going to collage it all together. And
Oh, that's
so,
awesome.
and she hadn't found well, she had found a song, but it wasn't an ideal song. And I said, hey, this French artist just sent me this song. And I asked her if we could use it, and she said, sure. And Sunday, we asked another friend to choreograph it. We shot the video in, 2 or 3 hours. And it's, the artist she said she was moved to tears when she saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really great piece. And so, we're bringing together all across the world, and it's a really great feeling.
That's really cool. Yeah. I'll have to give you'll have to email me just like a bunch of links at
Okay.
the end of this.
Okay.
Um, you know, that I can give to my students if they're interested. Um,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Mhm.
Last thing I want to ask you, and then we'll probably we'll wrap up like the main section of this interview, and then we'll get to kind of the bonus questions, I guess. Um,
Mr. G question.
um, yeah. So the last thing I'd ask is, what would you say to somebody who maybe not somebody who's like directly prejudiced against Asian Americans, but just um, thinks that what's been going on isn't reflective of some broader problem, that Asian Americans are successful and don't really need a lot of sympathy right now. Um,
Mm.
how would you respond to that?
We're talking about the model minority myth. I'm
Hmm.
sure. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Right.
lots.
I mean, there are so many things about Asian Americans and the Asian American experience that people don't know, because there is that model minority myth going out there that Asians are
Mhm.
all smart and driven and good at math and um,
And successful.
successful, right?
Yeah.
But the truth
Yeah.
is, um, you know, have you heard of the Chinese Exclusion Act?
Yep. Yep. So
Yeah,
for my students who
yeah,
may not know, that was this law that said that Chinese couldn't come into the country from I don't remember the exact dates, but it was I think the 1800s
'60s, yeah.
to the mid 1900s, and uh, Miss Velez, who's the history teacher, is gonna I don't know be yelling this at her screen, but yeah, that was about the time, right?
Well, that's the thing, though. Part of the Chinese Exclusion Act was laborers from China were not allowed to come.
Mm-hmm.
Only people who were teachers, doctors, people in the higher, sort of more highly educated. So they had already basically
Oh.
culled the population.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, because they had a quota, and I guess they picked the highest in society people to
yeah, yeah.
oh.
And even so, Chinese were not allowed to become citizens until the 1940s. I mean, there had to be lawsuits. You were not allowed to be naturalized if you came from China, no matter how much time you spent here and whatever dues you pay. The whole idea of being a naturalized citizen had to be fought for in court by Chinese. So anyway, the people that came from Asia were limited to only the successful ones, and that's why you know, there's that whole
Wow.
minority myth.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
That's
had to
really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So it's not true that all Asians are that way. And then certainly, and then later on, with the influx of refugees, really from Vietnam and Cambodia and things like that, where the regimes were oppressive to the people that were escaping, that certainly was not the case that everybody that came was successful or highly educated. They were just trying to escape. So
Hmm.
um and then you know now it's more open, but no, you still, even as of
There's inequality.
yeah, even as of a few years ago, I remember trying to help someone come over. They had to prove that they had like a certain amount of money in the bank before they were allowed to have a visa for a certain number, to stay. So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. A couple of other things too that I know are that it really also the especially because a lot of uh, Chinese, I think especially Chinese and Japanese immigrants who are kind of some of the first waves of Asian immigration here have had a long time to become established
Hmm.
in the United States. And then I think kind of the next wave was Koreans, and then you had um, Vietnamese people who were escaping from the Vietnam War, and they're just now starting to kind of um, reach some level of
Second
economic
generation,
prosperity.
yeah. Hmm.
Right, but the most recent groups like the Cambodians, Laotians,
Hmm.
and I'm obviously making broad generalizations here,
Hmm.
but I think honestly statistically like a, a lot of the more recent groups that have immigrated are still live. A lot of them are actually living in poverty. There are actually very many Asians that live in poverty. It's
Hmm.
just not talked about that often.
Yeah, I think I can share some information with you later on. I'll have to find it. But there's a series of slides that I saw recently about the model minority myth, and the other thing about the model minority myth is uh, it's created its existence is based on the fact that the whites are at the top of the strata. And being a
Mhm.
model minority means you're more like the whites than the other minorities. And
Mhm.
it pits Asians against the other minorities. Uh,
Yeah.
because, to be uh, more financially secure and you know, submissive to the masters, that's another Asian myth, right? Asians are
Mhm.
quieter. They put their heads
Mhm.
down, they work, and they don't complain, and blah blah blah. And why is that held up as a great?
Yeah, they clearly didn't have me in class.
That's why, as you get to the second and third generations, that people blast through those myths, but it's true. I mean, even growing up, my parents, any racist incident, they just wanted to ignore it because
Mhm.
they didn't want to cause any trouble. But the idea that being quiet and hardworking and submissive and studying hard, all those things were good things, were because they were what the masters wanted.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that pitted us by putting us a little bit higher than the other darker minorities. It
Mhm.
it really just serves the whole hierarchical structure of white privilege.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. All right. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview. I think we're a little over 15 minutes, but uh,
It's just me.
hopefully we'll find a way to make this work. And yeah, thanks so much. I'm gonna go into bonus questions now, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right.
Are you ready?
So
I'm ready.
I'm ready. Okay,
Okay.
I might just show this to my students. We'll see if anyone else wants to show it to their class. So the first question is really two questions.
Okay.
How old is Mr. G, and is there any embarrassing story of Mr. G?
Oh, you've come to the right place.
All right.
Mr. G is 24 years old, right? And he's turning 25 soon. I can't
Yep.
believe it. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. G was, okay, very smart at a very young age. He learned how to use the
Okay.
computer at age 2, right? And how old was he? 6 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old when um, his father had made a copy of his credit card and kept it in his drawer. And Mr. G ordered an Apple, stole the numbers off the credit card, and ordered an Apple computer. What happened was I still
Stole is a strong word, okay?
he actually really, I guess he didn't really realize that it was stealing. He was very interested in computers from a very young age and obsessed with operating systems. And so one day the doorbell rang and the UPS man was delivering a box with a brand new Apple operating system. And Mr. G was like, "That's for me."
Yeah. By the way, for the younger listeners, operating systems came in boxes back then. Um,
Only if you wanted to update them yourself.
right. Okay, fair, fair.
And he had been talking so much about operating systems. I said, "Why do we have an Apple operating system?" And I said, "You didn't order an Apple computer, did you?" And so we had to call Apple and cancel the order when he was 6 years old. I'm a very
Oh, wow. I don't know if that's embarrassing. That's honestly kind of like,
yeah.
I'm kind of proud of that one. I'm not gonna lie. Um, okay. Second question is, what got you into art? Maybe we should do these like rapid fire, just so
Yeah.
you can have a
What got
life,
me
you
into
know?
art? I started drawing because I was trying to get away from my baby sister. And if I was drawing, I could go to my grandparents' house and draw and be away from my baby sister, really. And then later on, having gone through most of my life not doing a lot of it, I went back to it when Noah went to college and started taking classes again.
Mhm. Yeah. By the way, sorry, I forgot to say. So the first question was from Isaac, and the second question was from Sammy.
Okay. Hello.
Um, and then let's see, what's an interesting. Okay, so Jen wants to know, what was it like being a fashion designer?
Oh, wow. Fashion design is backbreaking work. It's really, they're just, uh, because with fashion design, unlike with just art, um, you constantly have to come up with something new. With art, you can sort of continue in your style, in your genre, and explore, and you don't necessarily make a lot of money. But fashion turnaround is so fast, and there's so many aspects involved, and it's this constant need to stay on top of things, and I just it wasn't for me.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's really interesting. Is that just kind of just the culture of the industry? Do you think it has to be that way, or like?
I think there's a movement. Oh, the fashion industry is trying to, in many ways, the younger generation is, well, I mean, everybody is trying to make things more sustainable.
Mhm,
Make it, because the fashion industry is really actually one of the worst when it comes to sustainability and fast fashion. Uh,
mhm,
because clothing creates making new collections of clothing and having people discard their old clothing creates just unimaginable amounts of waste and pollution, actually, in manufacturing. So
wow.
the new generation is definitely trying to make sustainability a big goal, but there's still the need. I think part of fashion is there's this need, and with social media, even more so, need to have the next new thing come around. It's just a never ending
Hmm.
cycle.
Yeah. Um, all right. So next question is from Itzak,
Mhm.
and he wants to know, how long does a painting take to make?
It depends. I can do anything. Like, I've done live events where I can do a little, very quick portrait, and fastest I've ever done is 5 minutes. And then sometimes when I'm making, okay, I'll show you something. So I did. This is
Oh.
the piece of work that I did for Share Your Asian Story. And this is the campaign that we launched. This particular piece, because I wanted to research Asian faces and Asian fashion and the idea of coming together and
Hmm.
all this kind of stuff. I did like probably 3 or 4 days of research, pinning images and saving them, and then working out how I wanted to depict the clothes and the ideas. That took
Wow.
this one took like, I would say, a little over a week. And it's, because I work in watercolor, it's a little fast. Someone who works in oil painting, they have to wait for the oil paint to dry. So
Right.
it really depends.
Huh. Wow. That's such a wonderful painting.
Thank
And then who was the person? I think this was Dayanara asks, and this is the last question. What's made you want to go back into art? Oh, there's my dad.
you.
Hello. All the
stopping.
10th graders are going to see you now. Anyway, um, yeah. So what made you want to go back into art?
Wow, I was just really looking for something to do after Noah left, and I had a little more time on my hands, and I started taking watercolor classes. Or no, I started taking painting classes, and then when we went on vacation, watercolor was something easy to bring on vacation. So I started out just documenting our travels a little bit with watercolor,
Hmm.
and one thing led to another. It's kind of crazy how things have happened in the last few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mama.
Thank you.
I think there's so much great content in here. I, yeah, just really blown away by the quality of this interview. I think our kiddos are going to learn a lot.
Aw,
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is so
Yeah.
great. This is my favorite interview this week.
Oh, I'm glad. But you're biased though. All right.
All right.
I'm gonna stop recording.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.